Hello everyone, my name is Ciyadh, and today we're going to talk about choosing your own repertoire and choosing the pieces that are right for you. Choosing and deciding the pieces that you're going to play is so much fun. It's your opportunity to get to decide what you want to do. Remember, it's the time for you to be creative and to showcase your skills. With that in mind though, it's really important that you think just a little bit about what you're going to start learning before you do it, because ultimately you want to have a really successful learning experience. Even if you have a teacher or you're studying mostly by yourself, I think these ideas can apply to you no matter what. One of the most important things that you should do as a guitarist is listening. You should always be listening to lots of music. Listening to new music, listening to older music. Listening to music helps you to discover the music that you like and maybe the music that you don't love as much. It's how you can begin to understand the differences in interpretations of pieces as well, which is important when you're deciding what you're going to play. In general, in your repertoire and in the pieces that you're going to play, you want for there to be a variety. A variety of what? Well, you want there to be a variety of sounds and harmonies, genres and styles, composers and their identities. You want to have a variety of time period of which the composition was composed. You want to have different techniques presented. You want to consider the length and also the overall difficulty. Thinking about variety, you always want to include a lot of it. Playing a variety of music helps you to develop different types of skills and techniques. Composers each have their own individual voices that are often informed by their lived experiences, and that comes through in that music, just like when we're playing, it comes through in our playing. As guitarists, it's important for us to use our repertoire as the opportunity to explore their voices and the different types of stories that they may have to tell. So there should be a diverse array of composers' identities represented in the works that you're currently playing. Again, you don't want to do too much of one thing. Yes, it is good to master skills, but there has to be a balance of mastering skills and also acquiring new skills. Both are equally important. If you've already learned to play a certain scale or a certain type of chords and you feel good and confident about what you've learned, then you may want to choose a piece that doesn't focus on those things so much. You want to progress through skills and acquire them, but there's no need to make a huge jump between skills and topics, because there will be time for you to address everything that you want to do. It's also important in this process that you consider choosing pieces that you like. You may not like every piece that you play, but you want to have some pieces that you do enjoy, and you want to keep in mind your own growth as a guitarist. So if you're sight reading a piece and you find there to be a handful of technical challenges, too many for you to tackle, then it may be time to choose a different piece. I will say though that learning new notes higher up on the fretboard, for instance, is probably not a technical challenge. By this, I mean going from single line melodies to chords with 6 scales, or have only ever learned to play chords and then jumping right into tremolo. For instance, you wouldn't want to go from this piece to this piece with nothing in between. Remember, it's okay for things to be challenging and to be hard because that helps us grow. But we don't want to go too far and risk our health or anything else that can stop us from getting better in the future. Now, just a few reminders. Just because you decide that a piece might be too hard for you or too easy, it doesn't mean that you'll never play the piece. It might just mean that it's not right for right now, but there will be plenty of time to do it later. Now, if you do have a performance date coming up, like a recital at school or something, keep that in mind because you want to give yourself plenty of time to learn the piece and to practice it as well. I wanted to mention just a few resources that can help you find some repertoire. These resources include the Institute for Composer Diversity, the Guitar Foundation of America's website, Strings by Mail, Guitar Music by blackcomposers.com, and womenoftheclassicalguitar.com. Each of these websites includes a variety of pieces at all skill levels, so check those out if you're looking for more repertoire to learn. Well, that's all for today. I hope that you found this video helpful. Choosing repertoire is one of the most exciting parts of being a musician, so just keep in mind to have fun.
Voicing. Sometimes we have chords, but we want to highlight one note of the chord, or maybe this one, or maybe. So in that way, I want you to be able to highlight any note of the chord. So how can we do that? Okay, the idea is to be able to push a little bit harder with one finger than the others. For that, we can train like this. We will push really hard with one finger without stroking, just pushing the string, and then we will stroke the other fingers really soft, like this. We push the finger, and then really soft. Okay. In this, we are training pushing really strong finger with really soft movements. And now we can try to. Okay. We will do the same exercise with the ring finger. We push really hard the ring finger, and then we stroke really soft. Okay. Now. Very good. Next exercise will be the M finger. So we push really hard the M finger, and then we soft. And then you see. One other idea is when you prefer your fingers to put the finger you want to highlight a bit lower. So like pushing from a little bit from before. Or maybe so this is one idea. So in order to practice this, I want you to highlight 2 times this note, and then 2 times this note, and then, okay? So, okay. After the exercise we did first, you should be able to feel the different tensions in the fingers. So try to really feel the finger you want to highlight a little bit more tense, like going a little bit inside. Okay, and try to push a little bit harder with the finger you want to highlight. Remember, you can push not just harder, but a little bit. Put the finger like this. exercise is when you have the chord, try not to highlight anything, just normal stroke, all the same, at the same level. But slowly highlight one of the notes, but really slowly, like growing, and then go back, and then highlight another note, and then go back, and then try again, repeat.
I'm back to talk about your left hand, and I'm going to give you some exercises to build finger independence today so that your fingers can really sort of do whatever you want them to do, regardless of what the other ones are doing. So I'm going to start with a very basic octave exercise in first position. What I mean by that is we're going to be playing octaves in first position. So we're going to start with E and E, and we're going to play them together with P and I. Do these all with P and I if you like. It's more about the left hand. Then we're going to do two Fs with 1 and 3. So stay in position. Remember, one finger per fret. F sharp, G. Try to keep the things I was talking about in the previous lessons in mind. Thumb position, concave, palm, curled fingers, relaxed thumb, straight wrist, all that good stuff. Don't worry about timing for now. You're really just going to start off and get used to this, playing the octaves with the right fingers. And I'm going to speed through it. Of course, you should do it slowly, but this would be the peak G sharp in first position. You can, of course, then go back down. Okay, once you have sort of that figured out, you know how to play your octaves with the right fingers, we're going to work on sort of preparing the following octave as best we can. A very common issue in guitar playing for beginners and intermediate students is that they complain that it sounds a bit choppy. This often is a result of the left hand either not getting to a note fast enough or maybe even leaving a note too soon. So what I'm going to do is whenever I play one octave, with the next two fingers, I'm going to hover them over the strings where they need to be so they can just come straight down. So 1 and 3 are there, now 2 and 4, hovering, straight down. 3 is going to go straight down. Take my time to align it, 4 and 1, straight down. You get the principle. It's much easier for your fingers to be accurate if they just are hovering somewhere and they have to go directly down rather than if they're hanging out in midair. If my fingers are up here like somewhere, I got to get to the C. We're asking for a buzz, we're asking for just inaccuracy. So that's the second way to practice the octave exercise. After you've got the shapes, work on preparing the following fingers, the following two fingers for the next octave shape to make it as smooth as possible. Next, you can practice separating them and adding fingers only as you need them. So you're leaving every finger down as long as possible. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. As I press this G, I leave the F sharp there until the next G. G sharp, A, leave this down, press the A, B flat, leave this down. So I'm really synchronizing the pressing of the fret with the plucking of the string. They're happening at the exact same time, which means the previous notes are not being cut by either this hand or this hand. So the notes are overlapping. We're getting a smoother sound. That's what we're going for. Okay, this idea I'm now going to apply to a little arpeggio exercise. Let's take P, M, I, around C major, changing the bass note to G7. Once again, you can slowly work with your teacher just to sort of build in that as a starting point so you know what you're doing with that. And what I'm going to talk about now is sort of the idea of adding fingers as you need them. If you learn how to strum chords or how to play different styles of music, you might have thought about sort of placing the chords all one at a time, like we did with the octaves. They're working as a unit. But often in guitar playing, especially in arpeggios, we can benefit from sort of placing the fingers as we need them, like we did in the second octave exercise. So how that would translate to an arpeggio exercise is, let's do, say, P, M, I, P, M, I. Now watch my left hand. P, M, I, P, M, I. Now, I was saying P, M, I, which is my right hand, but you may have noticed I went P, M, I. I trained my left hand to sort of add those notes on those strings as my right hand was playing those strings. Do the same thing when you go back to C. P, M, I. If you switch the arpeggio pattern, you're going to switch the placement, the order of the placement of the left hand. P, I, M, P, I, M, P, I, M, P, I, M. Again, the result is that nothing is being cut earlier than it needs to be. Things are resonating, overlapping, sounds beautiful, and you're getting better control and synchronization between the two hands. We really started out just focusing on this hand alone, and now hopefully musical applications of this and how it works with this is becoming a little more clear. Great, those are your drills for this week. See you next time.
Session on chord playing. So in the first two sessions I talked a lot about kind of the left hand basics in terms of technique, or maybe not even basics actually, some stuff to kind of stuff after you've been playing for a while that you probably have thought of, but now you can practice applying specifically those things, because these are the little things that will make your left hand cleaner and faster. Things like minimum movement, things like considering anchor fingers and guide fingers. So in those first two sessions I've been dealing with these 6 basic chords, what we call the chords related to the key of C. C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major and A minor, or the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chords in the key of C. Now, you may or may not have taken much music theory. I would love to spend a lot of sessions on music theory, but because I'm a bit of a music theory nerd in that way. But what I'm trying to do here is talk a little bit about music theory, but make it more functional, make it guitar specific. So with that being said, you know this, if you've been playing songs, pop songs for the most part, and classical songs or jazz songs are just made up of these kind of standard chord progressions that you will see over and over. So a progression is when one chord follows to the next, right? Typically in popular music, it's 4 beats of each chord. You will often have a 4-bar or an 8-bar or 4-measure, 8-measure chord progression that just keeps repeating, and maybe one for the verse and one for the chorus. So what you can do to get better at playing chords, and what you should do, is learn as many songs as you possibly can. But these little exercises I'm going to talk about right here are exercises that can kind of almost get you right to the point. Practice your chords in the way that they are utilized frequently in popular music. So first things first, what you might have heard of is what we call a 1-4-5 progression. So in the key of C, which is what we're thinking about at the moment, C, the F chord and the G chord. So let's just take those 3 chords. So what we're going to do is practice those in order, in a progression, in the order of 1, 4, 5, and then always going back to 1. So in my right hand here, I'm just going to do an 8th note strum pattern, or especially if you live in England, you might call it a quaver strum pattern. If you live in the States, you probably are thinking of this as an 8th note strum pattern. And an 8th note or a quaver we know is just half of a beat in music. So a strum pattern is just down, up, an 8th note strum or a quaver strum. So a down and up for every beat. So I'm going to do what we call a 1-4-5 or a C-F-G back to C progression. So I am going to do it relatively steady. C. moderate in tempo there. That's what I should have said before I played it. So there I'm playing a C, an F and a G chord. So what you want to do is take that progression and just loop it. That progression will come up time and again in popular songs. Then what I'm going to do is take that progression and start on the C, but kind of then do the G and the F backwards. A 1, 5, 4, 1 progression. So C major, 5, G major, F major, back to C major. So that's a 1, 5, 4 progression. Now, another really fundamental progression to practice is we're going to drop the F chord for a minute. Do I hear everybody cheering because we're dropping the F chord? We're going to think about the C and the G chord. We are going to, though, in between the C and the G chord, instead of playing an F, we're going to take those minor chords that we've been dealing with. So first of all, we're going to take the 2 chord in the key of C, the D minor. So I'm going to play a C major, D minor, G major, back to C progression. So C, D minor, G, C. So that is what we will call a 1, 2, 5, 1 progression. C major, D minor, G major, back to C major. Now, the next way I'm going to practice it is I'm going to substitute the D minor chord for an E minor chord. So I'm going to play C major, E minor, G major, back to C. That is what we would call a 1, 3, 5, 1 progression. So C major, E minor, G major, and C major. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, ooh, that sounds familiar. Yeah, because these chord progressions are what come up time and again in popular playing. The last chord progression there is then to, instead of playing an E minor as the second chord, we're going to throw in an A minor. So that's what we call a 1, 6, because A minor is the 6th chord, a 1, 6, 5, 1 progression. So that would be C major, A minor, G major, back to C. So again, I'm always going to practice it, even though I'm running you through this really quickly. What I would suggest you're doing when you're practicing is kind of sitting with each of these progressions. At least play them through 5 times each. Do it nice and slow, nice and steady, but I'm always thinking about trying to keep it as solid as I can. So here is a 1, 6, 5 progression. C, A minor, G major, back to C. 1, 2, 3, 4, C. There are some really basic chord progressions that you can practice, and while they're basic, they are fundamental in popular music and in classical music and in different styles. So when I'm practicing those, I'm literally just giving my hands lots of time to play those chords in lots of different orders. I'm playing it though always nice and steady, and I'm also always thinking about in the left hand those things we covered in lesson 1 and 2. Minimum movement, keeping anchor fingers, trying not to let my fingers octopus. So, happy practicing. See you soon. Bye.